Hi, I'm State Representative Doyle Heffley, and welcome to this edition of Legislative Report. Today we are at the Pennsylvania Farm Show, the 104th Farm Show, and we're here with Emily Swackhammer from the Penn State Extension in Berks County. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit, if you could just maybe relay back to our viewers what's so great about Penn State Extension, how did you get involved in it, and then we're going to talk a little bit about something that you have been very involved in, and that is the spotted lanternfly.
Sure. Penn State Extension provides research-based answers for real-world problems. So it's my job to help people with their questions. Often it's about horticulture, that's my area of expertise, but I will try to help anybody with any question and help them find resources and real answers based in research.
And the thing with the extension, now they get a line item in the budget to fund the extension, and they do very important work. Penn State is the agricultural school, obviously, but with the extension, I think what's important to know about the extension is you don't have to be a farmer. If you just have a small garden, or just if you'd like to do a lot of shrubberies and flowers, you can learn a lot through the extension.
Absolutely. We work with our big producers, our crops farmers, the dairy industry, our fruit producers, but we also work with a lot of people that have just land and they want to grow things on their land. Oftentimes people will come to agriculture through their passion for gardening, and then they develop that into a real business. We also work with home gardeners. If you have a backyard vegetable garden and you have trouble with your tomato plants, you can call your county extension office. We have master gardeners that will answer questions, and we always try to find the research-based answers. If we have trouble finding an answer within the knowledge base we have in the county, we'll go to the university for those answers.
Now, a lot of local gardeners, and whether they're just growing local tomatoes, or a lot of folks that have shrubberies and specialty trees, there's a big issue right now. We have the stink bugs, we have the gypsy moth, different invasive species, but the big topic right now is the spotted lanternfly. Obviously it continues to spread throughout this Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. What can folks do now, and what are some of the concerns that they should have going forward with the spotted lanternfly?
Yeah, so spotted lanternfly is a community problem. We're trying to protect our local agriculture. It's really hurting the grape growers. It can kill grapevines, and it has killed many grapevines. It's a very expensive problem for that industry. We're worried about our timber industry as well, but they also will attack ornamental plants. So, people have high-value trees in their landscape. We have public gardens and arboreta, and we don't yet understand how all of this feeding pressure is affecting the long-term health of these trees. So we are very concerned about not spreading it any further, and we're trying to develop more and more management methods to control it where we know it exists. We're trying to beat it back in those areas, and hopefully the research is going to catch up with always new and improved methods to try to control it.
So right now, the biggest thing is just obviously people to be aware of not wanting to spread the insect. If they're laying their eggs on an automobile or a vehicle or on certain types of products, that you're not taking those products out of the quarantine area into other areas, therefore exposing those areas to the spotted lanternfly.
Right, so this time of the year, the only life stage that is out there are the eggs. So all of the adult insects have died because it's been cold enough. People need to learn to identify the eggs. They almost look like a bit of mud splashed on the tree. Sometimes people will describe it looking like flattened chewing gum on a tree. You can go to the Penn State Extension website and see pictures of what the egg masses look like, and we can help you learn to identify them. Then, when you know what they look like, please inspect any items that you're moving around the state. Even within the counties that are under the quarantine by the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, we don't want it to be spreading within that area either. It's not uniformly distributed throughout all of those 14 counties. So it's very important that people inspect items, and if they see anything even that looks like a spotted lanternfly egg mass, you can scrape it off of the item into a container and put rubbing alcohol in there and just give it a good soak, and that will kill the eggs. Or you can just literally smash them. You can use an old credit card or even a stick or a rock or even just your finger to smash them. And when you smash them, the innards of the eggs come out. It can be a little messy, but then you know they're dead. Yeah. If you don't like the smashing method, scrape them into some sort of alcohol. Rubbing alcohol or hand sanitizer works well. Okay. And clean those items before you move them. So not only is this something we're asking people to do, it's a requirement by the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture under this quarantine order that we have. So everybody is required to do that. Homeowners that are moving items, but also businesses, and businesses are required to have a permit. So they take a training class. It's an online training class, not very long. You pass a quiz, and then you get your permit, and you are supposed to go and make sure nobody in your company is spreading spotted lanternfly.
And that's important. Obviously, Pennsylvania is the Keystone State, so it is a transportation hub. I've seen the spotted lanternfly really initiated and started in Berks County, moved into the Lehigh County. Carbon County, which the 122nd district is in Carbon County, is part of the quarantine area as well. We're starting to see more and more of them up in our region, part of the state. So it is something that I think residents need to be aware of and what they can do to prevent it until we find out exactly what we need to do to eradicate it. So, but I thank you for your time today and stopping by and chatting with us and talking a little bit about invasive species and the spotted lanternfly. We're also going to be talking to a few more folks from the Penn State Extension here briefly about other invasive species that are coming into Pennsylvania and what you can do to be prepared for them. And now we are with Mike Maziuk from the Penn State Extension. And Mike, if you could explain to the viewers just a little bit about what the Master Gardener program is, what are the benefits of the program, what kind of training goes involved in it, and why it's beneficial for people to go out and get involved with the Master Gardener program.
I'd be happy to. The whole program started in Washington State about 35 years ago, and it came about, there was an increased demand for consumer education and horticulture, and Extension or other universities cannot meet the demand. So they came up with a system for training volunteers, and that's what we do. We've carried it on the last 30 years in Pennsylvania. It's in 62 of 67 counties, and volunteers receive about 50 hours of training in horticultural topics on entomology, plant pathology, vegetable gardening, and then in turn they have to give 50 hours of volunteer time back into the community. Some of it's offering classes. They run demonstration gardens in many of the county office, a lot of them at county facilities. In fact, I know you're from Carbon County, and they have 2 demonstration gardens in Carbon County.
So nowadays, a lot of folks are going organic. Everybody wants to go organic. A lot of people are growing their own vegetables or their own fruit, but also ornamental trees or flower gardens or anything that they could all benefit. Even your lawn could benefit by the things you learn through the Master Gardener program.
Yeah. Yes, those are all topics that are covered during the 50 hours of training. Some of the statewide projects they're doing, one big one is pollinator gardens. We realize pollinators are a problem or a concern, and they are educating consumers on how to encourage and create habitats for pollinators, so we can guarantee our food source into the future.
Now, is there a list of different things you can plant? I know talking to some folks about butterflies, the monarch butterfly. I think it's milkweed that they rely on. I believe that they rely on, so they ask folks to plant that around their house or in their gardens, so that the monarch butterfly, I guess they need that nutrient in order to make the flight from Pennsylvania back to Mexico.
And to complete their life cycle, yes. There's whole sections on pollinators, and with the monarch butterflies, we actually have classes that are taught on that, as well as have gardens that show you which plants that you use, and we have no shortage of publications on pollinators and like for butterflies and how to attract butterflies to your garden.
Well, that's wonderful. I think it's encouraging to see folks come out and get involved and learn about those pollinator gardens. I think the important thing is a lot of times we look at insects like the monarch butterfly and maybe their numbers are down. A lot of it is because they don't have the food sources that they need, that they rely on. So, the Penn State Extension, just getting that information out, educating people on what are some of the better, more beneficial plants to plant on their property is very important.
Yes. Yeah. These are all top things that we encourage in that program. If anybody across the state is interested in joining the program, if you contact your local extension office or look online under search under Master Gardener, you can get contact information. They run classes once a year in most of the counties. And like I said, they're pretty intensive. They go for about 15 weeks long, and it's intensive training. And then, but it's as well as educational. It's a social thing. A lot of them get together, and it's a great group of individuals to work with. We have about 3,500 Master Gardeners across the state right now.
The group in Carbon County, the Master Gardeners in Carbon County, are very active. They generally attend our expos, or we do a senior expo, a sportsman's expo every year, and they're always out. So if anybody's watching, they'd like to get involved, just contact the Penn State Extension in Carbon County at the Carbon County or through the Carbon County Environmental Center. You can find out more information. But I would definitely encourage, if you have a small garden in your backyard, or you're just looking, you have some questions, to reach out to the Extension. These are resources that are here for the community to help out, to whether it's helping out the pollinators or just making maybe your tomatoes a little bit redder. So thank you, Mike, for your time today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Welcome to the official unveiling of the 2020 butter sculpture.
Our theme for the 2020 Farm Show is Imagine the Opportunities. It is a theme that captures Farm Show well, but it also transcends this event to agriculture and as well as the Commonwealth at large. This sculpture is meant to delight all who see it, from the east to the west of Pennsylvania. It shows that anyone can be a fan of dairy.
3, 2, 1. This year's sculpture, East Meets West at the Pennsylvania Farm Show, features mascots from the East and West coming together to celebrate, because with Pennsylvania dairy, every day is game day.
Eagles fly on the road to victory. Here we go, Steelers, here we go.
The orange and the black, the orange and the black.
My hope, now that Butter Gritty is a reality, is that people that live in Philadelphia or in Pittsburgh or other urban areas would say, I hear they have a Butter Gritty or a Steely McBean butter, to come check it out, and they would get to see where a lot of their food comes from.
I think the intention is definitely have a lot of fun with this sculpture and broaden the audience for the Pennsylvania Farm Show. So these guys really have a lot of fans, Gritty, McBeam, and Swoop, so hopefully that'll do that.
Please remember, we all win when dairy wins in Pennsylvania.
Continuing our conversations with the Penn State Extension, we're here with Steve Lurch, who is from the Penn State College of Agricultural Sciences. You are the Senior Associate Dean for the college?
That's correct, Representative Heffley.
So if you could just talk to our viewers a little bit about Penn State Extension, why it's so important to the Commonwealth, why we put so much importance into the work that you do and getting this information out to the public.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to visit with you today. And what I'd like to say is, as Penn State and the College of Ag Sciences, we don't just support the farming community in this Commonwealth, we support all the citizens of this state. And we do it through our research and extension in food production, food safety, food security, forestry, wildlife biology, the environment, marketing, rural sociology, and engaging in rural communities. All of these things are part of our bandwidth, working on the most important issues of society.
I think it's important because there's so many things out there now. We talked earlier about the spotted lanternfly, the invasive species that are coming in. There's also weeds, the Japanese knotweed. A lot of folks are seeing it. I've seen it in my yard. But also that you have the swine, the different swine flus, the avian flu, which can impact communities, and everybody's seeing this with the spotted lanternfly, the gypsy moth in their community, and the work that you're doing through the extension to try to get that information out, but also figuring out ways to control these pests.
Well, thank you. And I couldn't start sharing that information without first thanking the General Assembly and the citizens of this state for supporting what we do at Penn State. And we couldn't do it without your support, and we really appreciate that, especially coming from you and your district. But it's true, Penn State is kind of a keystone state when it comes to invasive species, whether it's a spotted lanternfly, gypsy moth, giant knotweed, whether it's animal diseases like avian influenza or African swine fever. Because of Pennsylvania's location and the huge amount of shipping and transportation that comes through the Commonwealth, we are very vulnerable to these diseases. We have the Boston Harbor, New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Delaware, all the way down into Baltimore and Savannah. All of that traffic goes through Pennsylvania. So we really are a keystone in terms of first defense for the rest of the nation. And we really appreciate the support of the Commonwealth and you and your colleagues in allowing us to be prepared and have that bandwidth to be able to address these issues.
Well, it's obviously vitally important. Agriculture is the one-two industry. I think it's a leading industry. Number one
Yep.
in the Commonwealth. 1 in every 7 jobs is somehow related to food production in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Just here at the farm show, if you get the opportunity to stop out, grab a milkshake, enjoy some of the PA preferred. Also, shop local, and that PA preferred labeling is very important. But what you do with the extension, it's public health, it's public safety, but also it's about the economy.
Well, definitely. It's the economy of Pennsylvania. It's about workforce development and extension. We train the employees of the people in these companies that are producing food for the state and for our citizens that drive that economy. But it's also 4-H and youth development. It's FFA and producing ag educators out there in our high schools. So it's kind of remarkable when you think about it that only 2% of the population is involved in food production, but 100% of the population benefits from what that 2% does. And so it's really important what we do. I think sometimes it's important to step back and look at history. So I'm kind of an old guy. And the year I was born, there were 160 million people in this country. Now we have 330 million people in this country, and we're feeding that population on 20% less farmland. And how did that happen? That happened because of the collaboration between state and local governments, federal governments, land-grant universities, the commodity groups, and people like Farm Bureau and Penn Ag, and the corn growers and the hog producers, all of these people working together to feed this society and provide a safe, affordable food supply.
And it's also important, the information that you're getting out. The farming techniques of years ago are a lot different, and some of those techniques that were employed years ago by farmers had adverse effects to the environment. So now there's best practices, using less fertilizer and growing more crops, and also managing those pests and those invasive species that could in turn affect those crops.
That's a really good point. In fact, this background right behind us here extols the attributes of no-till and cover crops for reducing the impacts of agriculture on water and air pollution. Really important innovations that are being implemented by our farmers to reduce the environmental impact that we have here in agriculture. And like I said, we're producing twice as much food as we did 60 years ago, and every unit of food is being produced with 30% less environmental impact. And we can do great things to reduce improve water quality and mitigate the issues that we deal with air pollution, water pollution, greenhouse gases, and those things. So it's an important focus that we have at Penn State, and it will continue to be so, the sustainability of this industry.
Well, I know I see the extension at our local county fair, how they work very closely with our 4-H group in Carbon County. And just people think Penn State, they think football, they think basketball, athletics, but it is a land-grant university, it's so vitally important and intertwined with our agricultural community and our number one industry here in the Commonwealth.
And that's true, and Penn State Extension is represented in all 67 counties of the Commonwealth. You know, we really really are out there with the producers and with the citizens. And, you don't think about things like this, but the opioid crisis, Penn State Extension is engaged with rural communities to help with education programs and treatment programs to mitigate those risks and help those families that are devastated by. That's just one example. It doesn't really have anything to do with agriculture and farming, but again, when we talk about things like rural communities and rural economies and how we can keep those strong, Penn State Extension and Penn State College of Ag Sciences is engaged in those things.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for your time today. Enjoy yourself here at the 104th Farm Show, and definitely grab yourself a milkshake and enjoy that hard work that you're putting in on the front end, turning out some great PA-preferred products here for the Commonwealth to enjoy. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you very much for your service to the Commonwealth.
Thank you. And we're going to conclude this edition of Legislative Report with Dean Andy Hoffman from Penn Vet and talk a little bit about the importance of veterinary science, what Penn Vet does, and why it's so important to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, thank you. Representative Heffley, thank you for coming over here. First of all, we have a booth, and education is very important what we do at the farm show. So we have a veterinary school, which is the only veterinary school in Pennsylvania, and it's located both in the main campus of University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia and a large animal and agricultural campus out in Chester County, Kennett Square. And what we do is we principally train veterinary students, and that program it's a 4-year program. We have about 125 students per year. These are top-level students, come from all over the country, all over the world. We happen to have about 40% of our students in this first-year class from Pennsylvania. So we do have a very strong focus on training the next generation of veterinarians, also those in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, 2/3 of the veterinarians were trained at the School of Veterinary Medicine, and about a third immediately, when they come out of school, about a third stay in Pennsylvania, go out, and as you can see, they come back. We have veterinarians in all but one county, I think, with 68 counties, so 67 counties, so we have 66 out of 67 counties right now that are Penn Vet grads, so they're everywhere. Yeah. And the purpose is to give them a very broad education so that when they finish the 4-year program, they will be licensed veterinarians. But we also have a very broad research portfolio, and for the Commonwealth, one of the most important things that we do is that we offer critical diagnostics to safeguard the food supply, livestock and poultry in the state being a lead industry, agriculture being a lead industry, and livestock and poultry being a big part of that. The role that Penn Vet plays through its diagnostic labs is absolutely critical for surveillance of poultry diseases, swine, dairy, outreach to dairy to improve productivity, fish, aquaculture, as well as actually providing clinical services. So we have 2 major hospitals, 2 of the busiest veterinary hospitals in the world. One, Ryan Hospital, that is located in the city of Philadelphia, West Philadelphia, about 37,000 cases a year, mostly dogs and cats. And at New Bolton Center, we have Widener Hospital, which saw 5,500 cases last year. You do the math, that's 14, 15 a day. And we run a 24/7 emergency service in both locations, as well as out in Chester County, our veterinary school has a field service with 9 units. We go out, we train our students out there. They go out on the farms, principally in Lancaster and Chester County, but also Burke, and they're focused largely on the dairy industry, but also we do a lot of outreach and a lot of surveillance in the swine and poultry industry. So we are a critical link in agriculture. We keep your food safe.
And that's very important. I know most folks, when they think about their veterinarian, they think about if they have a dog or a cat, and their local small animal veterinarian. But the importance of what Penn Vet does for agriculture, which is the leading industry in the state of Pennsylvania, and with where they have the swine flu, the avian flu, and all these other diseases that could definitely affect our farmers and our economy here in the Commonwealth. I know there's always been talk. There's always a shortage of doctors, a shortage of veterinarians, and why is it's so important that folks that have that passion have the opportunity. I know the Commonwealth makes an investment every year in Penn in the School of Veterinary Science at Penn, and it's very important that is done, because the importance of having these large animal veterinarians. People will spend a lot of money if they have a small animal on surgery. If you have a steer, generally it's an economic decision, but you still have to have those doctors that are trained to ensure that those herds are safe.
That's correct. Yeah. No, that's Representative. That's a great comment. We're in a business that is a cash business largely. You know, the insurance there isn't as much penetration of the insurance industry into veterinary medicine. So it is largely a cash business. Whether you have a dog or cat, or whether you have livestock, you're dealing with, largely payment through cash and your investments in your farm and so forth. So yeah, what do? We help people not only with medical decisions, whether it's their family members or companion animals, or whether it's livestock and poultry. We also help them with economic decisions. And so they're a vital part of a community that wants to have animals. You mentioned the shortage, and there's two major issues there. One is to identify where the shortages are and to figure out why. And the other is how to innovate to get veterinarians back into those shortage areas. So our program aims to provide the necessary but also cutting edge kind of education you need to go out and to large animal practice, in a modern large animal practice. But we're also innovating certain areas to get veterinary students additional training, whether it's in human health care or social services, to actually shore up the healthcare gap that exists both in the veterinary world, but also in the human healthcare world. So what you're seeing out of the University of Pennsylvania is a real transformative program right now, where we're educating our students to have broader skill sets. And that may also include business, entrepreneurship, or even environmental studies, to bring to bear in the agriculture industry new models of sustainable agriculture, but also deal with new markets, emerging markets, and new models to encourage the patronage of veterinarians and to place veterinarians in underserved areas.
Well, I appreciate the work that you do at Penn Vet. I think it's vitally important. I know I can thank you from my wife and my family and our puppy Thor, who this past year had to have surgery, and our veterinarian was a graduate of Penn Vet, and his son just graduated from Penn Vet and is now taking over the practice. So it is great to see that, and my wife thanks you, because I think she likes that dog more than she likes me.
But they are family members, and we're very proud of the work that the faculty are doing to offer clinical services. It's a great example. Thank you for mentioning that.
All right. Well, thank you. I just wanted to give a shout out to our local veterinarians who do such a great job. And thank you for all that you do. And that's all the time we have for this edition of Legislative Report. I'm State Representative Doyle Heffley. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any state-related issues or concerns, please feel free to contact my office. The information will appear at the bottom of the screen.